I invite Dr. Abhishek Singhvi, Member of Parliament and Senior Advocate of the Supreme Court of India, to welcome the Chief Guest and the Guest of Honor.
Honorable Vice President of India, Honorable Chief Justice of India, Raj, distinguished members of this most august audience, Honorable Judges of the Supreme Court, Honorable Union Cabinet Ministers, Honorable Chief Minister Delhi, Honorable former Chief Justice of India, Honorable Attorney General, Honorable Judges of the High Court of Delhi, Honorable former Judges of the Supreme Court and former Judges of the High Court, Chairmen of Tribunals, Honorable Members of Parliament, my colleagues, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, forgive me for not taking names. Our chief guest and guest of honor, special guest of honor today need no introduction. At a personal level, one brings the fragrance of Rajasthan, my home state, and the other, pleasant memories of more youthful days. Though that is, with great respect, a disservice to the 50th Chief Justice of India, who continues to look youthful even now, and is probably the youngest looking incumbent of that office in 75 years. The man in whose memory we hold this memorial lecture was truly a remarkable man, the possessor of many multifaceted talents, but above all, an ideas man, a man of ideas. I recall how, while I was standing near him as a teenager, he simply put pen to paper and drafted the Law Day Charter within a few minutes, over 4 decades ago. He told the Supreme Court Bar Association, over which he presided 4 times, that it was a major omission for India not to recognize the day the Indian Constitution was completed. And thus was born by the Honorable Prime Minister, who rechristened it officially as Constitution Day. When he told Prime Minister Vajpayee that the ancient Indian philosophical concept of Setu Bandhanam, the social, cultural and emotional bridge that connects India with Indians globally, Vajpayee insisted on appointing him as a cabinet rank chair of the Pravasi Bharati project. Thus was born the innovative report which led to the entire Pravasi Bharati movement, including its celebration as Pravasi Bharati Divas, when India's most famous NRI, Gandhiji, returned to India on 9th January. As a 30-year-old parliamentarian, fresh from Cornell, Harvard, Berkeley, and after a recent study visit to Sweden in the early 60s, when Dr. L.M. Singhvi incessantly talked about the ombudsman movement, Nehru quizzically asked him, "You give speeches all the time on ombudsman, young man. To which zoo does this animal belong? You must indigenize it." Since L.M. Singhvi could converse in Sanskrit, he instantly coined the phrase Lokpal and Lokayukt, which passed into the Indian legal and parliamentary lexicon. In an ironical twist of fate, I chaired the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Law, which operationalized the Lokpal statute in 2011 and 12, exactly 40 years after he had first introduced the concept in Parliament. Through 5 Indian Prime Ministers and 3 British ones, he was India's longest-serving Indian High Commissioner to UK after Krishna Menon. More recently, about a couple of years ago, just before COVID, I was struck by the scope and depth of the philosophical, cultural, literary, political, and social issues which he and then Prince and now King Charles exchanged in handwritten letters by both over that period when he was High Commissioner. When I collected and presented them to Prince Charles a few years ago, he recounted many other facets of that warm association. As United Nations Special Rapporteur on independence of judges, lawyers, jurors, and assessors, His seminal report was applauded and unanimously adopted as the Singhvi Principles on Judicial Independence at Quebec over 45 years ago. And it is still in the corpus of UN literature referred to as the Singhvi Principles. Rajiv Gandhi appointed him as chairman of the Panchayati Raj Revitalization Committee in the 1980s. After telling him, quote, "Though Dr. Singhvi, you talk and write about our ancient Panchayati Raj institutions, they are in wreck and ruin everywhere," unquote. It was this report by him a few years later that led to the 73rd and the 74th constitutional amendments, which have entrenched decentralized governance in the Indian constitutional scheme. He could speak, write, and orate extempore in 3 languages, Sanskrit, Hindi, and English, and has published prose and poetry in the last 2. The list of his versatility is truly bewildering. Vice President Dhankar has traversed a long journey in a relatively short time, accumulating top-notch political, legal, and constitutional accolades on the way, but remains our very own, an intrinsic element of the legal biradari. He has been a live wire in whatever he has done. Bold, energetic, forthright, in-depth, and extremely hardworking. His warmth is legendary, and his repartee most absorbing. His rootedness and earthiness, partly, if I may say so, attributable to the community he comes from, means that he needs no reality check, but instead keeps giving reality checks to those around him. Adornment of high office has not ended or eroded his spontaneity. When I went for a formal invite to this function, he spent 5 times the scheduled time regaling me with reminiscences of my father, of Rajasthan, of him and me at the bar, with gems of anecdotes. He now presides over the house, where I am now in my 16th year, and his legal acumen and diplomatic skills, as he knows well, will not only stand him in good stead, but will also be tested to the limits. The best I can say about him is that the best is yet to come. Chief Justice Chandrachud's very exalted office prevents me, sadly, from sharing several personal anecdotes. But after a relatively disappointing academic result, disappointing in inverted commas, in his school leaving examination, actually a very honorable result, but disappointing by his exacting standards, he did what might be described best as revenge academia. He went on to top Delhi University and did not stop till LLM and SJD Harvard. Rarely have such scholastic achievements adorned the bench, but they are coupled with a softness and humility which is enchanting. As is said, a good diplomat is one who tells you to go to hell in a manner that you start looking forward to the journey. The CJI is a paradoxical combination of softness and firmness personified. Even before attaining the top judicial position in this country, he has created a legacy of progressive, liberal, inclusive, and pluralistic values through his seminal judgments. Many more are yet to flow from his erudite pen. Clearly, he has a vision, a forward-looking approach, and a reformist's zeal. The topic for today itself reflects it, the hiatus between electoral rights and autonomy versus its transformation into social and economic good. I have no doubt that the Honorable Chief Justice of India will leave his indelible stamp on the vital judicial organ of state, and through that, on India as a whole. Friends, I cannot thank you all enough for gracing us with your august presence in such large numbers. And each one of the categories, which I mentioned in the beginning, without taking names, is present here. Resuming this memorial series, in which the last pre-COVID lecture was delivered by former Supreme Court Judge Justice Rohinton Nariman on reincarnation, gives us an opportunity to consecrate the memory of a great son of India and to listen to the wise words of our chief guest and most distinguished memorial lecturer. Thank you very much indeed.